So hello, my name is Deborah Mura, and I'm the Director of Business Affairs at the Dramatists Guild, and I am joined here also with my colleague Christine Capinos, who you're going to talk with later, and Joan Jeffrey, so I'm going to introduce you in just a second. But we're really thrilled to welcome you to Who Tells Your Story? Planning Your Legacy, Planning Your Estate. Today is part one, where we're going to be talking about legacy planning. Next week, same time, same place, we are going to be talking more specifically about estate planning and estate planning tools with attorney Catherine Sloan. And the following week, the week of, I think it's the 26th, Tuesday the 26th, right? We're going to be learning more about literary executors and their roles. So we're going to sit down with David Saint, who's the literary executive of the Arthur Lawrence Estate, and learn more about what his role is. Like I said, I'm really excited about this series, and I really hope that during the course of it, you will begin to start working on a plan if you haven't already done so, or perhaps come up with tweaks that you want to make to your existing plan based on what you've heard. You may have heard me talk in the past about estate, a little bit about legacy, and what I always say is we have to think of our works, our plays, our music as our children too, and we have to take time to figure out what is going to happen to them when we aren't there to protect them and to manage them. I just want to take 2 really quick minutes to talk about the Dgcm, which is the sponsor of this incredible series. The Dgcm, for those of you who do not know, is the Dramatists Guild Copyright Management. It was founded to manage copyrights that are left to the Guild or to one of its sister organizations as part of an estate plan. So it's one option to have in mind when making your plan. The Dgcm is a public purpose corporation whose primary purpose is the protection of authorial intent. So while you may have agents or literary executors or anyone you leave your copyright to who may be looking to maximize revenues, we're always focused on the author's intent. And to that end, the Dgcm is very fortunate because we can tap right into the Guild's council. So we have a council committee which will act as a proxy for making these types of decisions. So you can always ensure that works that are managed by the Dgcm, the decisions that we have to make are being made by the best and the brightest that we have of the time. Again, Dgcm, it's one tool, it's one way to get back to the DG or one of the sister organizations, the foundation, the Lilies, DLDF, one of these organizations that has been there for you during your lifetime. It's also an option that people are finding useful if they don't have heirs that are interested in managing a work, because managing is a whole different part that needs to happen. I can certainly take questions afterwards. You can go visit our website, the dgcm.org, but without further delay, I really want to introduce to you Joan Jeffrey, who is the director and founder of the Research Center for the Arts and Culture at the Actors Fund, where she created the Performing Arts Legacy Project, which I'm sure you've all heard of. If not, you should really go check it out because it's really inspiring and incredible. She was also the creative art cart Saving Legacy, which is a project to help artists document their work. She has a list of accomplishments a mile long, so we are very honored and grateful for her time today. I actually heard Joan talk last fall, and I couldn't wait to find a way to get her to talk to all of you. So she's going to bring that wealth of information and passion to all of you. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton over to her. And yeah, I can't wait to hear what she says.
Thank you so much, Deborah. And thank you to the Dramatists Guild, Dgcm, for having me as a speaker. I really appreciate this. So let me tell you a little bit about what I'm going to do and actually who I am. I started my professional life as an actress when we still called them actresses. I was also a poet, so I'm in close proximity to some of the work that some of you I know are doing. And I spent 30 years at Columbia University as the director of the Graduate Program in Arts Administration and founded the Research Center for Arts and Culture there, which is now at the Actors Fund. I retired from Columbia, did a project, as Deborah mentioned, called Art Cart Saving the Legacy to document the work of visual artists in New York and Washington, D.C., and that then translated into the Performing Arts Legacy Project, which is really a national project through the Actors Fund to document the professional careers of professionals in the performing arts and entertainment. So today I'm going to give a little background about the research that we've done that informed the programs we've created, talk a little bit about thinking about legacy planning, about what some of the questions are. I'm sure you have some, and leave some time for questions at the end. I'm going to start with the PowerPoint. You can always put things in the chat room. I'll try to address them if they're relevant while we're going on or at the end. So this is the beginning. We can go to the next slide. Thanks.
Sometimes it takes a moment.
Okay.
There we go.
That's a quote from one of our mixed media artists, a homeless artist in the Art Cart project for visual artists.
Okay.
So the Research Center was founded in 1985 at Columbia School of the Arts, and it was at Columbia until 2011 when I retired from there. It moved to Teachers College in the middle. It then went to the National Center for Creative Aging in Washington, D.C., where we did the Art Cart Saving the Legacy project, again, twice more over a 6-year span, and then came to the Actors Fund to create, as I mentioned, the Performing Arts Legacy Project. So the Research Center has always been involved in providing data, information, and programming, especially in the service of artists and the arts. A few of our projects have included several multi-year studies in 10 cities called Information on Artists, kind of benchmark studies of the condition and situation of all different kinds of artists in the country. The Artist Training and Career Project, which looked at painters, craftspeople, and actors. A study of jazz musicians for the National Endowment for the Arts. Career Transition for Dancers Studies, which really started us thinking about older artists, which we felt that nobody was really doing much sustained research on. I mentioned Art Cart, which was a 6-year project, and the Performing Arts Legacy Project. Above Ground was the study that informed the Art Cart project. It was centered on New York City aging professional artists. And I'm sure you know this, but the aging reality of the population 65 and over is in front of you. Doubling to 98 million by 2060, working longer as we all are, living longer as I hope we all are, older women living alone, a much higher proportion, and a possible 75% increase for those requiring nursing homes to 2.3 million people. This, of course, will all change due to the pandemic we're in right now. But we have always felt that older artists are models for society. Baby boomers are retiring. There's a whole new demographic scene era, of course, in New York City and in the country. The changes in workforce for more freelancers, multiple careers, a changing workplace. And we found that artists, as I think we all know, those of us who are or were artists, are tenacious about their identity. In all the studies I've done in 30 years, and that's about 25 studies, 91% of the artists would choose to be artists again. They have a lifetime engagement with their art. So we studied 213 artists, 146 of them were professionals. That's what these data refer to, the professionals. They were age 62 and over. The requirements were they spent a lifetime making art. They were resident in one of New York City's 5 boroughs, and they'd be 62 or over. We did in-person interviews of over 200 questions in English, Spanish, and Chinese. Above Ground, by the way, was called Above Ground because the oldest artist we interviewed, who was 97, the interviewer said, "How are you today?" And she said, "Well, I'm above ground." So that became the title. And we learned from this study a lot of very important things, I think, that artists have high self-esteem as artists, that they communicate regularly with other artists, that they want to remain in their location. And this is, of course, New York, due to the community of peers. This was very interesting to me because I thought, oh, you know, artists in hard times are going to move out of New York, upstate. to a second house if they can, but they really wanted to stay here due to their community of peers. Generally in good health, but the status has changed. This study was done in 2005, so it's an old study. The performing arts study is more recent. They would choose to be artists all over again. 1 in 5 have no documentation of their work at all. Over 77% have no wills or estate plans. And they were very concerned their work would end up in a dumpster without this kind of planning. We used a method called respondent-driven sampling, which was invented by a colleague of mine at Cornell, a sociologist named Douglas Heckathorn, who actually developed this methodology for HIV drug injectors. It's a method to find hidden or hard to identify, hard to find populations. We first used it with jazz musicians, who of course you will realize do not join organizations, so how are we going to find them? And we next used it for this study of visual artists. And here's how it works. You recruit 4 to 6 people who are in the group that you want to study. In this case, older artists resident in the 5 boroughs and who were professionals and who had a lifetime making art. You interview the 4 to 6 people. At the end of the interview, you give them a small coupon with a number on it. And you say, would you please give this to 4 of your peers with the same qualifications, 62 or over, professional artists, 5 boroughs. And what happens is they recruit their peers. It's an iterated snowball sampling with teeth. So you can see from this chart, from 1 painter, we got 91 visual artists from 1 initial seed. And you can see how these clusters spread out. And they tell you a great deal when you analyze them about how people are connected. Are they connected by art form? Are they connected by race and ethnicity? How are they connected to each other? So it's a method, which is hard to find when studying artists, that eliminates bias after the 4th wave. So it's a pretty good measure of what you're trying to find out. So this is a profile of what we found out. Aging New York City artists, 73. They have a bachelor's or master's degree. This is very significant because remember that because of the age of these artists, we didn't have the factory of degrees that we have now. So artists have always been highly educated. No news to you. Education in artists correlates negatively with income, meaning, unfortunately, the more educated you are, the less money you make, which is not something we like to hear. They had health insurance. This is before Obamacare. They had a roughly 30,000 median income, which is pretty appalling for living in New York. They had retirement plans other than Social Security. They would not retire from their art. That's true in, I think, almost every art form, especially the ones listening in today. Strong social network, high self-esteem, communicate daily or weekly with other artists. There was a great story about a woman who was a sculptor in safety pins, and she got arthritis in her hands. And so she went to watercolor because she never could think that she wasn't an artist, because her identity was all wrapped up being an artist. And that communication with other artists really kept her going. They feel discriminated against by being artists. They go to the studio every day or every week, even if it takes an hour and a half to walk there. They won't retire from their art. They communicate, as I said, every day or every week with other artists. They have no preparation for their artwork after their death. And they are not planning to leave New York City, which is somewhat refreshing. I've had lots of conversations with the Department of Cultural Affairs, which is very excited about telling people about the creative capital in New York. And I keep telling them if they don't make rents reasonable for artists, they're not going to have any creative capital in New York. So artists, as I said, have made no preparation for their work after their death. You see here the figures that almost no one has an estate plan. Not too many people have a will or life insurance or preparation for work after their death, compared to the adult American population, which is, to me, unbelievable, because visual artists have objects to leave. And so that they haven't kind of taken care of this is kind of scary. So we developed out of this research the Art Cart Saving the Legacy project, which was a documentation project. It was experiential learning, intergenerational, interdisciplinary, all about positive aging and health promotion while I was still at Columbia. And it ran in these 3 time periods in New York and Washington. Visual artists matched with 1 to 2 advanced graduate students, who we called fellows from the arts, health, and aging. With a full semester course preparing students, talking about stereotypes of aging, learning through the lifespan, learning the software, learning how to do oral histories, to documentation of an average of 187 records in a semester, doing an oral history and a continuity plan with the artists, and a culminating exhibition after each of these. The first one was at Teachers College, the second one was at the Corcoran and NYU's Kimmel Gallery, because it was in Washington and New York. The third one at the American University Museum, and again at NYU. We were lucky enough to be able to archive all records, images, and oral histories at Columbia University's open source archive called Academic Commons. Feel free to go to Academic Commons at Columbia and look up the Art Cart collection, and you will find everybody's images, records, histories, oral histories. You see the partnerships that we made, the Joan Mitchell Foundation, 8 universities in 2 cities, the Whitney, the Phillips. We had extensive partnerships to do this. This is something you're probably going to want to look at. We're not going to look at it right now, and the painting in back of me is this painting, which is by an artist recently deceased named Sonia Gektoff, who was an Art Cart artist and who received the Lee Krasner Lifetime Achievement Award from the Paula Krasner Foundation. Was a San Francisco artist, very, very well known in the 50s and 60s. We created the Elder Artist Legal Resource because we found that visual artists were in despair about how to get information, about how to think about estate planning, how to create an estate plan, how to create an inventory, what was an executor, what was a beneficiary, do you pay them, etc. So we put together this website with Columbia Law School, Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts, National Center for Creative Aging. It's still up. Please go see elderartistlegalresource.org because it gives you the very basics that you might want to look at before your next 2 seminars that Deborah mentioned. And there's also our website, artsandcultureresearch.org, which has several films on the Art Cart project, the last one called Honoring the Legacy. We're not going to take up your time showing that today, but you might enjoy it. The second study we did in 2011 was of professional performing artists in New York City and LA, 62 and over, who told us they want to pass on their legacies through mentoring and working with young people. Oddly enough, and I have no idea why this is, I've been spending years trying to figure this out, 92% of performing artists in this study have a will, unlike the visual artists. So for some reason, they're more prepared. But 72% feel discriminated against as performers because of age. I remembering when we started this study, somebody said, when you go to LA, good luck if you can get actors to admit they're over 62. So there are obviously age discrimination barriers. This is the same kind of recruitment chain that we used in the previous study. It is respondent-driven sampling. Here you see this little key that one white male choreographer led us to 125 different performers. All these documents and the research are free, downloadable, and online at artsandculturalresearch.org. should you wish to look at them. So here is the profile of the aging performing artist. We have, that's Edwin Forrest as King Lear in the middle, an average age between the two cities of 74. They belong to a performers union. Ignore the parade outside my window. They take more risks in their artistic practice. They live alone. 50% of those older performers live alone. They had health insurance, again, sort of pre-Obamacare. They said their current health places no limitations on their performing work. Still training in their art, very important. Having been an actress, I know what that means. You very often are in training because you get to perform the roles in training that you don't always get to do on stage. They live in rent-controlled apartments. Again, New York City has to pay attention. They have earned money through their art in the past year. They would all choose to do it, well, 90% or more would choose to do it all over again. They communicate, again, as well as visual artists, daily or weekly with other artists. They have a degree beyond high school. They had experiences as an apprentice. This is, I think, something very sadly that we don't do much anymore, apprenticeship. They have a deeper creative experience as they age to be paid attention to. They're not planning on leaving the metro area. And they're very satisfied with a lifetime of a performing career, even with all its difficulties. And they have a will, as we said, as we saw. The challenge for us in creating a performing arts way to document careers from visual artists was substantial, because older visual artists are really about their objects and their stories reinforce those objects. And older professionals in the performing arts are about their stories and their objects reinforce those. So our challenge was also how to make this available for a large number of artists, performers, professionals. And so the Performing Arts Legacy Project is also about documentation, experiential learning, intergenerational, interdisciplinary learning, positive aging, health promotion, and we needed to create an online platform to expand our reach. So vital performances and the creative histories that comprise this important component of our heritage are really imperiled by a lack of a functional, sustainable model for documentation in the performing arts. Museums and galleries have databases, performing arts and playwrights and writers and so forth usually do not. And I think artists and performers lack the validation that allows them to sum up and pass along their legacies that almost all the literature in aging says is so important. So really the process of doing a project like the Performing Arts Legacy Project is to review a lifetime of working in the arts, which is a real catalyst for a life review. And older artists, as I said, provide role models to younger artists and performers, and the connection to a community of people with shared goals. If there's one thing that we've learned, two things we've learned that are very important from this, and that is, and those are the sense of community that ensues from doing this and this sense of incredible life review. So capturing memory is a personal filter on one's experience. And it would be presumptuous of us to say that we're identifying value. Of course, there's value. We're trying to recognize it and honor these people and save our national legacy. So we had 10 professional actors whose names are on the bottom of this slide. Some of you will recognize between the ages of 67 and 92, all kinds of theater and TV and movies represented. We had 5 young performers do oral histories with them to start off. They were trained by Columbia Oral History. We made some very good partnerships with the New York Public Library, volunteer lawyers, the unions. OATS is Older Adults Technology Services Senior Center. That is senior center which helps older adults with technology and for universities. And those same 10 actors and 7 students in theater education, arts, health, and aging, and 3 young performers came together for a 13-week course, kind of condensed the art card experience with sessions both at the Actors Fund and in the Actors Home to create a career grid we called Mapping the Legacy, a curated life review, which is really a 10-minute encapsulated video of the artist going through his memorabilia and oral histories. We created a web platform, including templates for a number of levels. And the 10 older actors came back in year 2. They were with us, by the way, for 2 years, kind of being our guinea pigs and helping us create this amazing website and database. So they came back in the fall of the 2nd year. The interns changed more to professionals instead of students, many of them playwrights, interestingly enough, working with the same 10 actors. And this is the reason this project has never been done before. 2 words, legal rights. Visual artists usually own their own work, and if they don't, or even if they do, they usually own the copyright to that work. People in the performing arts very often own nothing. Writers are smart enough, usually if they can, to keep their copyright. But we really had to face the fact that many of the images and pictures of memorabilia that were going to be uploaded did not have permission. So instead of doing what the rest of the world does, which is to upload it and wait for someone to come after you, we got 4 young legal interns from local law schools. We got volunteer lawyers for the arts. We created a guide to clearing rights, and we had those 4 interns / legal fellows help the 10 actors identify the rights holders and ask for permission to use that material. And I have to tell you that 95% of the places we asked were absolutely thrilled to give permission and did not charge. And part of that, I think, is because it was at the Actors Fund. And another part is that it's educational and non-commercial, and nobody's trying to monetize anything, and it is a service to the industry. Next. So in the summer and fall of 2018, we evaluated it, we tweaked it, we made corrections. And in 2019 in May, just about a year ago, we launched this platform and increased our marketing and relationships. And now the site is live, and we have close to 40 legacy stories up on that site, which we're going to show you in a second. It is called the Performing Arts Legacy Project, performingartslegacy.org. We're going to go there right now and show it to you, show you a 3-minute film about the project and just what the site looks like. And then I think we can open for questions.
Okay, just one moment.
So this is the site we're going to play that film.
Actors Fund's Performing Arts Legacy Project documents the legacies of performing artists aged 62 and over. 10 actors between the ages of 67 and 92 participated in the inaugural edition of this intergenerational project to save our national legacy. I'm Len Cariou, one of 10 professional actors that helped build this project, which was created by the Research Center for Arts and Culture at the Actors Fund. Young theatrical fellows worked with the actors to help document their legacies in a variety of media: oral histories, video profiles, and interactive career timelines, all with the goal of preserving and enhancing their stories. Here's just a sample of the work they collected.
I said from my very first conscious thought, I dream to be an entertainer.
If I give her my last nickel, and that leaves me in a pickle, ain't nobody's business if I do. There ain't nothing I can do, no nothing I can say, that folks don't criticize me.
first time actually in public when I was in the Miss Clinton contest and won that contest. So then they had to have me in the Miss Mississippi contest, which was the first time any non-white ever was in it. Why should I? How could I?
Never in a million years did I think I could cross over to the other side of the footlights and be part of that make-believe world.
The Performing Arts Legacy Project will give young performers, scholars, and researchers a view into the realities of a professional performing career, as well as insights into almost 100 years of performing history. By digging deeper into their stories and memories, we recognize the performers' histories with dignity, and we identify with aging as we honor and celebrate how these performers keep on keeping on.
I came to New York in 1967.
1962,
1959.
I did my first Broadway show.
I was going to the Academy of Dramatic Arts. I thought it was just a wonderful world to inhabit.
I have never dreamed about or wanted to do anything else.
To get involved with the Performing Arts Legacy Project, email us at info@actorsfund.org or call the Actors Fund at 212-221-7300.
Okay, Kristen, can we go back to the website itself?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I just want to show you a few things on it in case people are interested, and then we can have some questions.
Sure. There we go. Okay.
There we go. Up to, yeah, great. So this is the homepage of the Performing Arts Legacy Project, and you can see this red bar across the top. And probably the thing you would want to look at if you're viewing is Legacy Artists. Can you click on Legacy Artists, Chris?
Yes.
Thank you. And browse site directory right there. And this is the directory of artists. If you'll scroll down, you'll see names that you probably recognize of not just actors, but directors, artistic directors, stage managers, playwrights, all kinds of different backstage and front of stage people in the performing arts and entertainment. These people, most of them have worked with us in live cohorts at the Actors Fund, which we have every fall. We are now working, of course, vigorously to change this to a hybrid model where most of this moves online, and we're hoping if we get back to Humanity in the fall, we'll have a once a month live meeting in a boardroom with social distancing, and the rest of the month doing online. If you'll scroll back up, Kristen, we'll look at a couple of other things on this site just to show you. There's a Getting Started tab, there's a Resources tab, would you click on Contributor Manual just for a second? This is a manual that really shows you how to use this entire site in minute detail with video tutorials. And I'm also telling you this, as I said, we have many playwrights on this site. You can do this on your own. You can register on the site, and if you're tech savvy enough to upload some of your material, write some blogs, do a career timeline, and there is a help and support request place that we can help you with this, or you can always reach out to me for more information. But we've really tried to give everybody a lot of supports into doing this. There's a whole section, as you see, on clearing rights and on credits. I should tell you, it's also very nice that Playbill gave us a waiver for the site. So anybody who wants to use anything from Playbill, as long as they give the appropriate credit, can do that. The Hirschfeld Foundation has done something very similar. So the industry is figuring out that this is kind of a good thing to do for everybody. If you'll scroll back up, you'll see, maybe we'll go back to Legacy Artists and take a look at browse site directory. Patrick McCarthy. who is a playwright, just to show you what he's done, because I think this might be of interest to you. So if you look under publications, you'll see that what he's done is linked to all his plays here. So that you can go to articles on his plays, you can go to his plays, you can see some stories about his plays and so forth. And he has also something called, on that bar on the top, you'll see highlights to the right. So this is a place where people have their own blogs or their own stories about what they've done. They can upload photographs or not. So this gives a real background. Obviously, Patrick was a director, an actor, and a playwright, still doing all of those. I would say that many of our professionals are still working and looking for work. Let's go back up to that red bar on the top and take a look under resources again, and you'll see where the legal guide is. There's a community engagement guide as well that helps communities do this. This is a guide. So there's a funny story about this, of course. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see this is in red and black print. And the reason for that is we presented this to our original 10 actors, and Richard Masser, who is married to a lawyer and used to be the head of SAG, Screen Actors Guild, said, "Oh my God, this is so much legalese. Can't we do something in English?" So he wrote the English. So the red is in English and the black is in legalese for people to use. And at the end of this, there are also resources about where to go that you might want to obtain information, people that might have the rights to the work that you're looking for. And there's a template at the end of a letter that you can literally write and fill in the blanks, asking for permission with a description of the project attached. So basically, this is a site to honor the legacies of our wonderful older professionals in the arts, performing arts and entertainment. And I feel very honored to be able to share this with the participants, because I think it's a win-win project for everybody. So I'm going to stop talking now, and maybe you can open for some questions either to Deborah or to me.
Okay.
Thank you, Kristen, by the way.
Of course. Okay, so we have one. How do you suggest playwrights document and maintain their own legacy, especially in early phases of their careers?
That's a good question. I mean, I think there are a number of ways. If you go to the Elder Artist Legal Resource, you will also see some suggestions for creating what I call an inventory. And it's, on this, it's called Mapping the Legacy. It's a career grid. Feel free to go to the site and take a look at it, because you may want to create something like that. But you can also create a simple Excel spreadsheet, kind of documenting at least wherever. It's important to know where things are, not just what they are and what they're called. And I'm sure it's in your own best interest to make sure, as much as you can, you keep the copyright to your work. I'm sure you know that already. But we actually created a spreadsheet that is also a tool on the site that you can fill in about what the object is, where it is, if you have the copyright, some details about it, an image if you need an image of it. So I would say if you are a young writer or a young playwright, it's probably really good to start now, because you're collecting memorabilia, you have experiences, and it would also, I'm sure you're writers anyway, probably be wonderful to keep a journal and keep track of that, maybe on one system, whether that's Excel or a different kind of platform.
I would just throw one thing in, if I can interject, is just to also, as you're going through things and you're signing collaboration agreements and you're signing publishing deals, these are all things you want to keep in a clean file, that you know where they are. Because Joan had this great, statement last time I heard her talk about, just imagine somebody walking into your room where you do all your writing, right? And she said, where do they go? And I just found that very compelling. like she said, where are you going to find everything? Where's everything located? And all of these documents, especially for playwrights, because you are the copyright owner, they're all very significant and relevant in terms of managing the work and keeping the work going. So you really want to keep things clean and neat and as organized as you can. And if you're at the same time collecting all of this memorabilia, which she's given you all of the tools to do so, you could be doing that as you go rather than having to 20 years later trying to find that one picture of, or that one little clip. These are all things you can ask for even in your contracts. You can ask for non-commercial uses of a recording and get them now, get them in your contract, get them in your file box.
I think the most astonishing moment for me when I was interviewing artists, visual artists for the Art Card Saving a Legacy project was an artist who came up to me and presented me with what looked like an architectural drawing of her studio with little pictures with numbers and a key to what everything was and where it was in the room. It was, so everybody has his own method of organization, but have some method of organization.
Right, as long as it works, I guess.
Okay, next question. Playwrights are always revising scripts even after they are copyrighted and or produced. Is there a way to update scripts uploaded in the legacy site?
Yes, there is, yes. If you have a script and you want it uploaded, that can be done, assuming either you have the copyright or we get permission from the copyright holder. And actually, that's probably very interesting to have drafts. That would be a very interesting thing to show people, you know, draft 1, draft 2, and draft 3. And I have a wonderful technical director who was my student 12 years ago and has been with me ever since. He used to run the arts and technology at Princeton. And we invent things that people need. I mean, if it's not, he invented for one artist, instead of doing a curated life review, which is a 10-minute video, a video book, because she was an illustrator. So the pages open like a book. So we can do a lot of things with technology to honor something like that, which I think is very valuable, looking at different drafts and how they change.
Okay. I'm most interested in how to structure my will and how to choose who to be in charge of my work when I'm gone. I think that's less legacy planning and more estate planning. Yeah.
I mean, look, that's next week, 3 o'clock Tuesday. We're going to be talking all about estate planning, how to make those choices. Definitely tune into the panel after that when we talk about literary executors. When you're making that decision about who's going to be in charge of your work, you know, it's an important one, because you want to make sure that person wants to do it and has the tools to be able to do it. One of the things that the Guild does offer is an estate membership, which is a membership that can extend after death. That can extend to the estate itself, so that you can always access business affairs. So there's different ways to talk about that, and we'll talk about that a little bit throughout you know, this series, a little bit more about how to make that selection, how to make, you know, and whether or not estate memberships are useful, or Dgcm's tool. So we'll go through all of that if you can stick with us. If not, just email us also at the help desk, and we can talk some more at the VA help desk. I erased a question. The first one of the questions that came in, somebody was asking how to learn more about the Dgcm. So sorry that your question wasn't answered. How do you learn more is definitely check out our website, the dgcm.org. If you're interested in having a conversation with me, we have a what's it called, Kristen? What's the name of that forum? When they're the inquiry form. It's called an inquiry form. That's a little title right on top, and you can just fill that out, and we'll just call you back, and we can have a long conversation about it. And definitely check out the website first, see if your work is a qualifying work, and see the type of work that we are doing. So.
I think one of the other things that when Deborah heard me speak last year that came up that I wanted to mention was, what about leaving your work or giving your work to an institution after you're gone? Well, you can't just bequeath it without asking the institution. If you give it to the New York Public Library, it doesn't mean they're going to take it. So we always advise people to look at their own relationships first. Do they have a college where they went or graduate school where they went, where they have relationships? Things, of course, life I've learned is based on relationships. Everything's based on relationships. So if you do have relationships with institutions or libraries, or, I mean, one of my actors actually donated all her memorabilia to the Fort Wayne Library because she grew up in Fort Wayne and they knew her family and they were happy to have it. So sometimes you don't think of those things, but they can be very important in who can keep your work in a way that you might like, so other people can have resources.
Okay, is there a fee for using elder artists' legal resources?
No, it's free, and everything we do is free.
Great. And then another quick one, can you begin to use the site to set up a legacy before you are 62?
Email me, because technically the answer is probably yes. People have asked that before because you might want to start earlier and build it up. So if you're ready to do that, I think it might be very possible to do that.
Okay, my father is a visual artist. Is there a program like yours where I can connect him to someone who might help archive and catalog his work?
Oh, that's always the biggest problem because what's happened is there have been very, very few programs, and the few that there are short-lived. So the Joan Mitchell Foundation had a very, very good program called CALL, C-A-L-L. I don't believe it's going on anymore, but you should definitely go to the Joan Mitchell Foundation website because they have a guide and a directory to cataloging your visual work. So that might be a place to start.
Okay, we have a couple questions about Canada. Can Canadians be involved in this, or do they need their own project in Canada?
So another great question. I'm unsure quite of the answer for this because the one difference, I've been talking to Ireland and the UK and Trinidad and now Canada, and the biggest discrepancy is the legal piece, because the laws of Canada are not the same as the laws of the United States. I would venture to say I would be more amenable to talking about how to work that out with Canada, because we're right next door to each other and maybe we could see how different the laws are as we got started. So I won't rule it out, but I wish you'd email me. My email is jjeffrey@actorsfund.org. Anybody who wants more info, please email me and we'll be in touch by email or by phone.
Okay, how famous do you have to be to get onto the Legacy website?
I'm sorry, how what?
How famous?
You don't have to be famous at all. No, absolutely not. Fame has nothing to do with it. We want, and we have, a fantastic cross-section of performers. Unknown, somewhat known, medium known, well known, and everything in between. And the most wonderful thing is that we are building a community where the thing we share is the art and the art form, not how famous you are.
Okay, that is about it for now. It looks like there's another question. I'll let you take this, Deb. When are you talking about the ins and outs of registering scripts and librettos with the Copyright Office, and when you need to file a revised certificate? I'm assuming that that'll be a question for a future BA webinar.
Yeah, we've been hosting, the DG's been hosting BA webinars once a week. We are on Thursdays at 3. This particular series is taking over for the next couple weeks, but then we'll be back. But if you have specific questions on that, you can always write into the BA help desk, and you know, we'll get that answered for you. This is great. I actually did have another question for Joan, if I can ask a question. We just, you know, we talked about somebody thinking through as things are happening, how to collect and archive. I mean, if somebody really wants to start to create this legacy, what's sort of the more compelling things one should do? Is it writing about their life? Is it pictures and artifacts, like, or is it all of the above and just trying to collect as much as you can? I guess, you know, if somebody wasn't going to take the time to post it on that particular site, how can they still begin to create a story for themselves and write their own story about how they want to be remembered? Like, what's the best way to, I mean, maybe this is just everything you've said.
But no, I think it's a very tough question to answer, because I think it's very individual. Mm-hmm. And I think different individuals express themselves completely differently. To some, photographs and memorabilia are important. To others, they're not important at all. So we have people who've created sites that have a lot of blogs on them, which are really like journals. We have people who've created 3-minute audio clips about different memories, parts of their background and their history, and teachers they studied with and things they learned. And so I think, you know, we're in a new age trying to use media to capture this, but I need people always to remember that technology is only the facilitator. It's not the point. The point is creating your story. And if you're, I mean, most of the people I'm talking to right now are writers. So the answer is write it down. And you can write it down, or you could speak it, or you can podcast it, or there are many ways to do that. But I think maybe the answer for each person is to figure out his own method of organization. I tend to avoid the word archive, because what we've created is really a living archive. I talk about documenting, because if you start talking about archiving, we're talking about archivists and paper and boxes and protecting documents, and that's a whole basket of expertise. That is fine if that's what you want, but if you want to create a legacy that people remember, and it's not so much the objects but the stories, then I think there are many, many ways to do that.
Great.
Okay, another question. Once you post on the site, who owns that material? Can
you do, always. Great question. I'm really a copyright maniac. So the person who posts owns everything. We obviously own the site, and we own what you put on the site in terms of its presentation. But you own it, the objects, and when the permission is given for you to post on this site, the permission is given to you, not to the Actors Fund and not to the Research Center. And it's only given for posting on this site. So you can't ask for permission for this site and then use it in 12 other places.
Okay, I write in a number of different genres and wondered if you include prose writing in addition to playwriting in this organization.
I think we easily could do that, yes. That's a good idea too.
Okay, that looks like it's it for now. There's a couple questions that I typed in answers to regarding our future webinars and stuff. If anyone wants to look under the Q&A for that. There's another question, do we use the same Zoom link for next week's program? It'll be a different link with its own registration. You can just go to the Dramatists Guild website, and under events and calendar, you'll see next Tuesday and the Tuesday after the DGC online events. So you'll click on those and be prompted to register, and that's how you will find the links for our next 2 webinars.
Right, so just as a reminder, we've got 2 more in this series. We've got the estate planning, the nuts and bolts panel next week with attorney Catherine Sloan, and then we're going to be talking about the following week literary executors. And please do feel free to also write to us and let us know if this is the type of programming that's helpful to you, and what more we can do to really facilitate this kind of planning process. I think this is something that we're just beginning to talk about more and more about at the Guild and at DGCM. It's about legacy and what sort of resources we want to develop to help our members as well. I think you heard about an amazing resource and resources that are already out there in the world and are clickable and free, which I find to be absolutely incredible. Even just the letter to get the rights to something available at your fingertips for free. So that's all thanks to Joan Jeffrey. So I want to thank her so much for coming.
Thank you.
She's definitely inspiring to me, so I hope she's inspired all of you as well. And we hope that you will join us as well next week.
Oh, I just wanted to add, because someone wanted to know if the slide presentation will be available to us, and it will be. It currently is on the Dgcm website under the resource tab, so that's thedgcm.com, and you'll be able to find it there.
Okay, so there's a question here. I'm of the age, did I perform with early Joe Papp in Shakespeare in the Park? I did not, but I was at Lincoln Center. So maybe we saw each other there a long time ago. I wanted to make one more pitch for something in the legacy experience. I think it's wonderful to kind of plan and take care of your legacy, but I also think it's wonderful to share it. So one of the things that we are always doing in this project, and that I urge you to look for, whether it's with us or someone else, is a real intergenerational experience in putting your legacy together. Because as we learned from the research we've done so far, people in the arts really like to pass on their legacies, and they really want it to mean something to more generations. And I always say that technology is changing, things are always changing, but certain things don't change. We still have to communicate with each other. We still have to find ways to touch each other. And working with another person on your legacy can be an incredibly rewarding thing. And intergenerationally, it's really a gift, a two-way gift. Thank you very much for having me.
I love it. Thank you so much, Joan. I love that idea. Maybe we can find a way to team up at more times and to get more the younger generation to help the older generation work on their legacy projects. So thank you so much. Thank you for everyone. And we will see you hopefully next week.